Mickey, welcome to CEO Interviews. Welcome to Seeking Alpha. Super happy to have you on the show. So thank you for taking the time and joining us.
Thanks, Rita. Happy to be here.
So catch listeners up on Vislink, but also on Mickey Miller, where you're coming from and what you've been doing before you got to Vislink, and then how you came on board at Vislink.
Great, great. Well, first, thanks for being here. Vislink is an incredible company, and I'll kind of give a quick background on what we do. We basically, collect, deliver, and manage high quality data and video for markets like sports entertainment, for military, for first responders, um, education, quite a variety of different segments. We're very strong in MilGov, every major um, first responder in the U.S. we typically work with, as well as a lot of NATO militaries and our own U.S. military. On the sports and entertainment side, almost it's easier to say the projects and the events that we're not a part of. As an example, the most recent Academy Awards, they did that, as you can see, in a very remote way, and 8 of the 9 cameras were wireless cameras, and they were Vislink technology that provided pretty incredible show for the Academy Awards recently. So that just gives one example, but it goes, to the British Open, the U.S. Open, Wimbledon, the Super Bowl, a lot of large tentpole events worldwide. Motor racing is a big event for us, of course. And so we're really proud of the markets that we serve by bringing our technology to those markets. And we see not only in our markets, but in a lot of markets, a massive opportunity ahead. As far as myself, I've basically built 3 different tech companies, largely around the intersection of analog and digital. The first one we sold to Tyco Electronics. It was a division of Lucent. We sold that to Tyco Electronics, and I ran that for 4 years. Then joined a company called Andrew Corporation, which was basically the last mile of all wireless. And we built that from about 800 million to 2.2 billion and sold it for 2.6 billion to CommScope. And then I started a company that we carved assets out of Nortel around 4G, 5G technologies, and we sold that to CCI in the mid-teens, 2016. And so what we see here with Vislink, when we started, I started just a little over a year ago, and we found it had some really incredible technology. It had been challenged financially for some time, and we thought, with the massive customer base that they had, the technology they had, the great skills and people in the company, that if we were able to put some fundamental operating platform in place and fund that we could do some incredible things. And so that's a journey we've been on since last January, and we're really excited about where we are and where we can go with this company.
And speaking of the journey since you've come on board as CEO, do you feel like it was a kind of a changing of the guard, going from the first iteration of how Vislink was formed and kind of a conglomeration of a number of companies coming together, and now it's okay, we're Vislink, we're about to be a serious, financial operator in this field? Is that kind of the thought process and the vision behind you coming on board and changing some of the things that had been in place?
Yeah, exactly, Rena. That was one of the bigger issues, that they had acquired a handful of companies and really not integrated them operationally. So they're all largely working independently. They weren't leveraging the brand. They weren't leveraging the full operations and capability of the sales team globally. And so we found, just some fundamental things to put in place there. Obviously, COVID hit us, 6 weeks into our change, but I think it made us better. It basically allowed, kind of reinforced that we had to make changes, and we had to even make more aggressive changes, given, as sports and entertainment were down 70%, 70% less events than we had in 2019. So I think, the team has really come together over the last 12 months to address the challenge that we had in the market, coupled with COVID hitting us. And now, we're stronger. I think we're stronger today than we would have been without COVID. I would have preferred not to have COVID, like we all would have not, but but I think the team really pulled together and we're positioned real well in the future. So
Yeah,
that's where we are.
there's kind of nothing that's gonna make you address, your leadership and your vision more than a global pandemic that is completely, catching everybody by surprise. But certainly if you're about to start something new, that must really kind of, you either double down, I guess, on your vision, or you readjust. But I certainly think that what you're saying is true, and we've seen that right in the public marketplace, that the people and the companies that are kind of solving for these problems, even as they're coming at them, and ones that are able to make these structural adaptations, are the ones that are able to kind of come out of this not only okay, but maybe in a lot of cases somewhat better than they started. And you guys have been transparent about that on recent earnings calls, because there's been some, steps backwards because of COVID, because of supply
Right.
chain issues. You can talk about the specifics, but also what you guys are doing to address that. I know, like, speaking of the supply chain, you guys hired a supply chain officer, compliance officer. I'm blanking on the exact title there, but is that one of the things that you're looking to address as you're coming out of COVID?
Exactly, exactly. So what we did through COVID was rationalize a platform, and we did it initially in the first quarter of last year, but due to COVID, we did another round of right sizing the organization, the real estate footprint that we had, to get it to where we are today. Because we believe, if you're not profitable at a $25 million company, you're not going to be profitable at a $100 million company. It's an ethos, it's a culture. And so everyone was really rallied around that. So we've got to a position where we now have a platform that we're really comfortable, that we can drive the revenue to be able to support that platform, but continue to innovate. So we've been able to increase our spend and our headcount in R&D, because obviously that's what drives innovation, that's what drives growth. So we've been able to increase there while bringing our overall cost of our platform down to be able to get the returns to shareholders. So we're very focused on creating a company that takes advantage of what's happening in the market, and we can talk about some of the things we see there, but starting first with a culture and a platform that we can be successful, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of money at it. And so that's been our focus from day one. We've been able to make some pretty massive changes in the last year in terms of our platform and our cost of our platform, and where we break even. So our break even point is much lower than it was when we started in January, and we're now bringing more products to market than we did in the last 5 years. And this year alone, we'll bring more products to market than we did in the last 5 years. So we're really encouraged about our new product platform. We just introduced our Quantum, which is an unbelievable all IP receiver. So we're really excited about the products we have, where the platform is, and just where the company is working together to be able to take advantage as we come out of COVID and see the opportunities in the markets that we see.
And what are some of those efficiencies that you're able to build, in terms of the supply chain, in terms of bringing the cost down? What are some of the things that you're pointing to in terms of, this is the way that we're becoming more cost efficient?
Yeah, like an example, we used to produce in 4 different facilities around the world. Now we produce in 2. So we've consolidated that focus. We have one in the UK and one in the US. We had, great example, we would design a product, and if it was designed in one design location, it wouldn't leverage the same modules, the same components, the same semiconductors that we're using in another design location. So we've basically taken a step back and taken a modular approach where, whether it's the modem section, whether it's a processor section, whether it's the encoding or decoding, these are standard modules that we'll continue to use and reuse in our products, so that from a hardware perspective, we're leveraging the same supply channels. So that gives us better costs. It gives us better inventory levels, because we don't have to inventory a bunch of different parts, and obsolescence is managed better. And also, as everyone talks about, with the supply chain challenges that exist in the semiconductor world, that make sure that we have a focus from our suppliers to support us, because we do a lot of business with them rather than with a few suppliers around many different semiconductor products. So it's Joe Carson, who you mentioned, we brought on to lead our operations. He's been in supply chain for over 25 years. He led Lucent supply chain, Juniper's supply chain was a big piece of that. And he was the head of supply chain for Micron Technology. So very large, sizable global operations. And he's helped us put together our global supply chain strategy so that we do the things that help us to lower our cost, improve our consistency in delivering to our customers on time, and reducing our inventory levels.
And as you mentioned, you know, like things that COVID brought to the fore have made you even more, you know, a better operator. Are those some of the things that you would point to and say, this isn't even something that we would have thought about necessarily if we weren't faced with these challenges, but here we are much more efficient because of it?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I used to say it's like a lake, you know, and you don't see the rocks on the bottom of the lake until the water's really low.
Mm-hmm.
And so when revenues get low, you see all the problems. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when revenues are doing well and you're growing, you know, there's problems that you don't even see, but you can see them pretty quickly when revenues are down like they were for us in 2020 due to COVID. So that allows us to really focus and prioritize which things we need to go after. So we were able to knock down a lot of things that we wouldn't have done if we just did our initial restructuring based on normal operating environment. So that's why in fourth quarter of last year, we had another restructuring just to address those other areas that we found due to the lower sales volumes. So that means, like, we used to have, you know, several hundred different product families. You know, with product families, that becomes complexity, which becomes cost. We were able to whittle that down to you know, 40% less, and we have opportunities to move that below. So we're able to still serve our customers in a great way, but do it more cost efficiently, and our inventory is more efficient. So all the levers we're able to do based on focusing on those areas that we saw as a result of COVID.
And then speaking about the new products that you have coming to market, you also have some new partnerships. Talk about that, and also the nature of patents, and how you guys are developing patents and how that plays into the new products that you have coming up, and also maybe down the line that we haven't yet heard about.
Yeah. So first on our partnerships, you know, our distribution, it was one of the things that before I joined Vislink, I was pretty impressed with. We've got over 150 global partners, and you know, many of those, a lot of people throw out a number, and you know, most of them aren't active. We have a lot of activity across the world. So for a small company, we have global accessibility to major projects. So we'll do everything from, like, you know, just talking about partnerships, our partnership with NEP. NEP is the largest outside broadcasting service provider in the world. They, you know, and OB service providers are basically, when you go to a large event, you see those trailers outside that have all the computers in it. That's basically what the OB guys are. NEP is the largest in the world. It's a roll up by Carlyle. Carlyle's one of the smartest investors in the world. So, you know, they've done an incredible job of bringing that capability to the world, and we're a strong partner with them. They use our technology, and the greatest example is what we announced with Extreme E. Extreme E is this new amazing racing series that they want to expose the world to global warming, climate change, and so they're having these events in remote areas of the world to show what global warming is doing. So the first one was in Alula, Saudi Arabia, the largest contiguous sand desert in the world. They're going to have one in Senegal around the ocean, in Greenland in the Arctic, in Brazil in the Amazon. So they're going around the world to take this show, and it's promoting gender equality. There's a male and female driver in these off-road vehicles. And what we're doing, we're able to put cameras in the cars and around the track, and then take that data and video, and then bring that to a satellite and then back to studios to be produced and distributed around the world. So we're basically able to bring that live to the world through our technology. And we're really excited. And those are the kinds of partnerships that we have throughout the world, not only on the broadcasting side, but also on the first responder and military government side. Similar, we're taking video, whether it's from a drone or from an airplane or a helicopter down to the ground, so that you can make decisions more cost effectively and quicker and more proactively than you can of sending out resources to handle the problem. So that's the technology we use. In order to do that, we have a vast patent portfolio, and we've reduced our portfolio because I'm not a big believer in having patents just to have patents. I want to make sure, because you have to pay for them. You have to upkeep them, so you have to spend money. So we went through and reviewed our patents and brought it down to what we believe is a real solid patent portfolio around kind of three key areas. One is MANA, which is a mobile area network RF capability. We have secondly, we have a lot of algorithms around interference cancellation, mathematically doing MIMO, really some really interesting, high-end mathematics around some of the biggest challenges that you see in RF. And then the third area is kind of general purpose to how to make things happen effectively in the market. So we're pretty proud of that. We don't patent everything because a lot of things you don't want to get out to your competitors, but between the patents we have, the know-how, the unique knowledge and partnerships that we have, we feel really comfortable in the areas that we're in a great spot to bring new technologies to those markets as they evolve.
And was the focusing of the patents, was that another of your initiatives that you feel like is going to have a more focused approach?
Exactly. Yeah. Rather than saying, hey, we have 50, 100 patents, of which many of them aren't worthwhile to support. I'd rather get the patents that we think make sense for our markets, support those, and then ones that were interesting, they were novel, they were great ideas, but they don't necessarily support our business. We stop supporting those.
And I'm curious, there's been some talk. There's been a lot of excitement around Vislink in the past week or a couple weeks for a number of reasons. One of the things that I saw in the past couple days was this excitement around the FAA passing new laws around drones and when they're able to kind of hover over people. Do you agree with that sentiment that that's good for Vislink and what you guys are bringing to the market? Does that affect, what products you're putting out there?
Yeah. When you look at where we see things happening, we have an investment thesis around Vislink that every industry will be reinvented in the next 10 years. And it's a basis of three things: massive connectivity. So that's connectivity of machines, connectivity of drones, of aircraft, of massive connectivity, video being a big piece of that. The second is big data that you're able to drive from that massive connectivity, and then AI on top of that to be able to do more things more effectively, lower cost, and more efficiently. So that underlying thesis is what we're building Vislink around, and and it's very different than even 5 years ago. If you look at the big players, who have been in the Cisco and others, they've built their business focus on the IT organization, but really technology is becoming part of the operations. Technology is about how we execute on our businesses, not just in having a PC or a Mac to do your job. So it's affecting every operation, every workflow in the world. And so that's what we see as different, because we have a unique position that's who we call on. We're calling on the people that are making it happen. We call on police chiefs, we call on fire chiefs. We're calling on the people that are making it happen and help them use technology to be able to do their jobs more efficiently and more effectively. And so that's what we see as this massive change. And that's why we see Vislink is in a unique position, given the history that we have working with these teams, the faith they have in our brand to be able to deliver on what we do. So that's why we're excited about where we are with Vislink and what's happened. So it's those key elements and trends that we see massively transforming every industry that we know. And our goal is, and what we did with the finance that we did in early February, was not to raise money to, did you mention dilution? Not to dilute, but obviously, no one likes to be diluted. But if you can take that cash that you raise and put it to grow, not to fund operations, which is what we're doing. This is strictly focused on growth, whether it's new products or new acquisitions, because we see opportunities to go into other markets with the same fundamental thesis around massive connectivity, AI, and big data, and then evolve our product offering to be able to handle not only video, data, but all sorts of things. So drones is a big piece of that. Drones, as I don't know if you've seen some of the things with China that they're doing, massive things with drones. They're super effective, very cost-effective way to do so many different things. And we see as yet just another element in the overall IoT, the connection of everything, as we transform every industry in the world.
And that's another thing that I feel like COVID has shown investors, that there's companies that haven't been afraid to kind of get some capital, even in the face of dilution, or even in the face of short-term disappointment from investors, but knowing that that money is going to serve them well. And that's something that you guys talked about on the last conference call. And I think would be proven by the recent filing of you taking on even more shares than you already have, which is, I think, another bullish vote of confidence to the company in terms of accumulating powder and what you guys have looking forward. Do you feel like that's mostly going to be based on acquisitions in terms of using that capital? Talk about what you're using that for and the plans going forward there.
Yeah, so we haven't used any of it, so it's sitting there in our treasury, and we don't plan to use it on our current operations. As I said, we focused our operations to at where we see the business as it is today. We want to focus it if we see areas in our current operations that we said, hey, if we invested some money here, we think we can get outsized returns to our investors. We'll do that. We're also looking at a lot of deals. There are a lot of companies that had challenges through COVID that had financial pressure, so we see opportunities there. We see companies that, for one reason or another, they were in the situation that Vislink was in a year ago, where they just haven't made the hard decisions to right-size the organization and focus in the right areas. There's opportunities there. So we're looking at a lot of things, but there's a lot of suitors these days with SPACs, with private equity. There's obviously a lot of money chasing a lot of deals. So we're going to be disciplined. We're not going to do a deal just to do a deal. We're going to be very disciplined in our efforts. Mike Bonds, who's our CFO, he ran Lucent's M&A for many years. He ran Avaya's M&A. He's done over $50 billion in transactions. So he knows that most acquisitions don't work out, and so you got to be very prudent on the ones that you do. So we're being disciplined, looking at a lot of different stuff, and we will add to our portfolio products and channels and markets that leverage what we do. We're going to stay in our sandbox doing the things we do, but we think there's a massive opportunity in the area that we're in.
And do you feel like that goes across sectors in terms of feeding each part of the chain that you were talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Because what we do today is pretty much consistent across. We take video, we compress it, we take data, we compress it, we send it to another element, we decompress it, and then we have a software to manage that entire process and workflow. So we do that and just basically repackage it for the various markets that we serve. So we see that type of technology being needed and then evolving over time. And we're in a great position today where, in a lot of cases, people are, take video in and they'll have 10 cameras that they have a human looking at. Well, I mean, we all, that human could be more effective doing other things, where you can have machines, really looking at this and making decisions on what the best things to do based on what's happening in whatever it may be. and making very decisive decisions earlier through data. Data will drive a lot of those decisions.
I think, when we're talking about what you guys have, what Vislink has going on in terms of sports and entertainment, I think it's easy to kind of, understand where that technology is going. If it's an official, trying to catch the ruling of a touchdown, or, as you were talking about in terms of the Oscars, like understanding where each camera is, and especially in this remote world, but even as we're
Mm-hmm.
going back to like live offerings, it's easy to kind of understand in terms of where that technology plays. I'm also curious and interested in where you see it developing in terms of for the military and governments, and for especially for policing, and what that technology do you feel like is going to bring to the marketplace, both as a business opportunity, but also something that can really try and end a lot of these problems that we're having, just because we don't. I feel like we're not using the right technology is not being used in many instances that could curb so many of these problems. I'm interested where you see that going, and what kind of innovation you're thinking about or looking at, or that's being discussed in regards to that.
Yeah, so we have, we look at it, we have this illustration that we show, we call the connected first responder. It basically takes in video and data inputs from everything in a precinct, for instance. So whether it's coming from a drone, whether it's coming from the air, whether it's coming from um, uh, 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 body cam, or from the top of a patrol car, or even, in a lot of cases from somebody who sees something and films it with their iPhone. So there's a lot of data out there, and there's a lot of apps out there that you could pull all this information together and then make an assessment about what's really happening, and then what needs to be deployed to manage that. So I think that the initial step, and historically, first responders, their first goal is to do their jobs. And so when they want to use technology, they want to make sure, I mean, this is life and death, so it's got to work, right? So they do evolve slowly. And so it will take some time, but if you can imagine, if you were able through AI to take in all these video inputs of what's happening throughout the area, you'd be able to make better decisions of what needs to be sent where, what's actually happening. And then I think over time, there's going to be better ways on how to deal with certain instances. Who knows? Maybe those days of robots out there aren't too far away. Who knows? Where the human emotion comes out of things. So we'll see. I think there's a great opportunity for technology to play a role. We're really admire what our first responder customers do on a daily basis. We're there to support them and recognize that it will take time because it is life and death situations that they work in. So adopting new technology doesn't happen rapidly. It takes time, and we'll work with them through those things. But we're optimistic about what technology can bring to that marketplace, because we see it today in the military as well.
I was going to
Some of our announcement that we did with the Army was basically an air-to-ground receiver, so you can take images from above and make decisions on the ground from a bird's eye view.
I was going to say also, do you feel like in terms of evolving, in terms of the adapting innovation, do you feel like data really helps in terms of pointing to, look, we can solve for all these things, look at this data? Is that convincing?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. But even simple things like, a lot of times you're not having GPS data. So you go, this is happening there, but now we can tie GPS data to everything. And so with that, exactly where it's happening. Obviously, we've got to be careful of civil liberties that you don't violate those, but you can you get a picture of what's happening, and make more proactive decisions that allow the first responders leg up in terms of understanding what's happening in the market. But I see data and video only being a bigger component of it. Obviously, as I said, for the civil liberties element of it, we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that it's being deployed meets the expectations of the public, and truly bring the public safety that we would all like to see.
Is
So
that part of R&D when you're talking about, making sure that you're not, stepping on anybody's civil liberties? Is that part of the process in terms of innovating? How does that work exactly?
well, it happens up front in terms of the opportunities that we see. We look at things and see, does this make sense for us? Does this align with our values? And then we make decisions there. From a technology standpoint, we can do a lot of things. So it's not a matter in many cases of what the technology can do. It's really what makes sense for the application, what makes sense from a cost standpoint, what makes sense from a civil liberty standpoint. So all those, we work with our constituents, our customers, to make sure we're making the right choices there.
So it's less from a legal perspective and more from a what sounds right, what makes sense perspective.
Right, right.
Got it. And in terms of what you're bringing to the marketplace in terms of all these different sectors, where do you feel like in terms of the interest in the marketplace, they're most that investors are most aware of in terms of looking at Vislink and being most excited about the innovations coming to the market? Where do you hear from investors that they're most interested about?
Well, I think I think they like the areas that we play in. I think sports entertainment, obviously, there's a lot of sports fans out there, so they love that. The military and government, anything tech related, the retail investor, they're very sophisticated tech folks. They see what's happening through places like Seeking Alpha, what's happening from a technology standpoint, about other sources on the internet. And so they're very knowledgeable about, obviously, social unrest that's happening. So they're very cognizant of what's happening there. Also, what we do around SATCOM, their interest in SATCOM and what's going on. So, it seems that the areas that we're participating in today, and also where the world's going with AI and big data and massive connectivity, that they're aligned with, that resonates with them. And I think they can understand our business well, that hey, we're in these areas because we're able to announce the deals that we've won. I'd like to announce others, because we have some NDAs that don't want to be announced, but we try to announce everything we can. And so they are seeing that, okay, we're doing business with the U.S. Army, we're doing business with NEP and Extreme E, we're doing business with Airbus, so that we have a great portfolio of products that are being accepted by tier one customers. And now we've repositioned the company on a financial footing that allows us to do a lot more than Vislink's ever been able to do.
And in terms of going out there and developing these partnerships, and you guys are in a number of countries, a number of continents, and as you said, as we've discussed, like over a wide array of sectors. How do you develop those partnerships? Is that a team of sales going out there and developing, or those pre-existing relationships? How are those developed, and how do you keep bringing more on board?
Yeah, first, we've got a great sales team. This team has been at it for a long time, so they've got a lot of relationships through the years of working, through various stages of technology development in the markets that we serve. No, and through that, they're able to know who the right players are, but also find new players. New players typically come to us through either our website, or traditionally is through the major shows that we would go to. People would come through and talk about different opportunities that they see in their markets, and so that's how it originally grown. Obviously, during COVID and likely in 2020, there hasn't been a major trade show. I think trade shows will change a bit for the near term as people move to the new normal post COVID. But we do a lot in terms of, one, making sure that we're doing the best we can do in support of our current partners, and then find other partners where it makes sense to grow in certain areas.
And in terms of like developing for this next leg of growth, as we're kind of exiting some sort of COVID reality and moving on, talking about new events coming online and traveling opening up, What are some of the things that you're most excited about in terms of Vislink bringing to the marketplace, or things that you're looking at?
Well, we've got we announced our quantum, we announced our IP link, our new DVE. So those are three major announcements that we've had in the last 5 months, and we've got some other things coming. We're really encouraged about. I think the people that we brought into our engineering organization are really high quality people that are going to help us accelerate bringing those products to market. We haven't announced those yet, but we're really looking forward to that. And again, it's around that thesis that we have around our business, that everything's connected, with big data and AI to be able to make it truly, connectivity is one thing, but you got to be able to have those elements to make it truly useful for the outcomes for our customers. So that's where we focus on is not technology for technology's sake, but what are the outcomes that are needed for the customers? And if we can do that effectively, there's tremendous opportunity.
And do you feel like as you've grown in this role of CEO, and as this crazy year has developed, has there been something that you feel like throughout your leadership position, not just as CEO, but as you've grown in your leadership position, something that you feel like you've evolved into taking on as an ethos, or something that you've kind of doubled down on over this past year that you've taken to the role of CEO?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because we had a meeting of my team at the beginning of this year and really reflect on what COVID, the year of COVID, and then what we want to do this year. And we're all a big believer. I'm a big believer that we're here to be our best selves. Our company is here to make sure that everybody in the company is the best self. And if that means they need to go somewhere else because there's a great opportunity, we want the best for everybody in our company, for them to truly be the best self and realize their full potential. And so that's what we want to work to do. And so we've all adopted kind of adjectives that we have to focus on. One of mine is I need to be more present, because a lot of times I'm thinking about what's happening next, that I'm not in the moment. So that's one of the areas that I'm working on. But one of the other areas that we're trying to work on as a team is to get real solid feedback, real time or almost real time, for everybody in the company, whether it's the CEO or someone who just joined the company. Our company, we want to build a company that anybody can come up to me and say, hey, I don't think you're right here, and here's why I don't think you're right. And we could have a civil discussion, debate about who's right, what's the right decision to make, because only through that will we serve our customers the best we can serve them. So the focus is on the customer, but really building a culture that we have transparencies, and we want to help each other. So we want to do it in a way of kindness and service to help each other to be the best person we can be. So we're really excited about that. We have a great team here. We're really building a culture. We want to build the company that we've always wanted to be a part of. And so really excited about all the work that everybody's doing to make that happen. And, as we said in our earnings call for the fourth quarter, in the first quarter of this year, we booked more business than we did in Q2, Q3, and Q4 of last year. So we're really excited that, things are turning in the market. People are coming out of COVID and seeing opportunity and spending money. And so we're really encouraged about that. And as a team, we're really excited about what we can do together in 2021.
Do you feel like, speaking about, it seems like it's a tough thing as a CEO to navigate that balance between looking forward and staying present on the mission, as you mentioned. Is that just a dance that you have to develop in terms of, because you do have to do both, but is that just a
Right.
dance in terms of knowing kind of when to put your attention in one place and when to keep your attention on the present moment?
Yeah, what I've tried to do in my schedule is have think time about where we're going, but then obviously we have our regular scheduled meetings around the current operations and what needs to be done. And I've got a great team. These folks have been at it for some time. Both when I look at my team that report directly into me, they're either were promoted from within or they came from the outside. So it's a new team that's been pulled together. Interesting thing is, I think I'm the only one on the team that has been in the same room with everybody else on the team. A lot of them joined either pre-COVID or during COVID, and they haven't had a chance to be in the same room. And we've been able to do some incredible things. So I'm really looking forward to when we can actually get together and build those bonds. But that's an area that we did work on, is how do you build a bond with a team member that you've never seen in person? And so we did a lot of things to get people to get to know each other, get to know their histories, their family life, who they are, what they want to do, where they want to go, their mission in life. And so, we worked on that and had a lot of fun with it. But it is interesting. It will be interesting, that we've been able to do when, it's been remotely. And as things get back to normal, I should say the new normal, how that will even be much better.
And do you feel like, how have you developed your leadership style? Has it been based on your experience and learning, as you go, or has somebody's mentorship kind of help develop how you think a team should be led?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been CEO of, as I said, 3 different companies before here. So this is my first, um, P&L leader type role. And I think at this point in my career, I've learned that I don't know everything, and nowhere near know everything. So I'm much more open to input, whereas in my earlier days I probably wasn't. And so I have a coach. My teammates coach me, help me. I find myself, and I learned this in starting my last company, is ask for help often, because people will help you. And I continue to do that in this role, because I learn a lot. People have interesting perspectives, ideas, and experiences that can shorten the time frame for me to learn something, make a decision, or whatever. So yes, I think probably if I'd say one thing that I've done more in the last 10 years is recognizing, not being afraid, not being embarrassed that I don't know something. If I don't know it, I'm very upfront. I don't know it. Help me out. Help me learn it. And how can we do this? How can we win in this area? Because it's all about how can we win as a team. So in order for that to happen, we all have to help each other get to the level that we want to play at.
The other thing I was curious to ask you was, given the deal that you had with the Department of Defense and the other agreements and deals you have with different governments, is there a difference in terms of approaching a government as opposed to, a different body, and how is that navigated?
Very different. Yeah, the sales cycles are different. The obviously in military and government, much longer sales cycles than in sports entertainment or in broadcast, and a lot more constituents. Depending on the organization, the decisions are made very differently, even from one first responder organization to another, because obviously there's mayors and city councils and all sorts of different entities involved. So it's really a case by case basis, and that's how we work directly many times, or we work with partners to be able to manage and support that.
I really appreciate you joining us, Mickey, and sharing what you have going on with Vislink and what Vislink is bringing to the marketplace. If you'd like to share with investors something that you feel like investors are not paying attention to or overlooking about Vislink, or something that you feel like is exciting that we should be paying attention to, happy for you to share that. But in the meantime, I appreciate you sharing your insights about Vislink, and thanks for joining us.
No, thanks, Rena. All I have to say is, we believe we're in the early innings, if not the first inning, of a massive secular change around those 3, the confluence of massive connectivity, big data, and AI. And we're looking forward to it. So we love our retail investors. We think they have an eye to where things are going in the future. They're discerning on what they invest in. And so, we're continuing to focus on what we can do in the markets we're in, and look for opportunities outside our markets through acquisition, and improve our business and grow it. So thank you much for the time.